Today I'm going to show you how to make a hat from a sweater. I'm wearing one that I've almost finished, but I really wanted to start with an actual sweater like this and cut it out, plan it together. I'm going to do it in 3 parts. The first part is pinning and cutting. Now you have to decide carefully, you don't want to just cut. So what I do is actually start with some hats that I've got at home. Got hair now. So I want to start with like a beanie shape, but then extend it by 5 centimeters all the way around so that I can work with the shape, and it isn't going to be too small, it's not going to be formed. So I'm going to go with a sort of easy shape to start with, but you can explore and extend it into other shapes. So I'm going to start with a beanie, which is sort of head shape. Now this hat is a little bit small for me, so I just wanted to put it on and just show you, because I don't want to make something that looks exactly like that. Obviously I can measure it and make something that replicates it, but I want to make something a little bit bigger. Now the part up here, there's a little bit of extra fabric up here, but I'm going to look at another hat, so that's a possible pattern. This one here, I've got a bobble hat. It's a little bit wider here, but there is no extra excess fabric here. This one, a third one I've got here, has a little bit more fabric at the top, so that's quite a good indicator. And I'm going to add 5 centimeters all the way around, so I'm going to add it to the sides, round and to the top. You can take it off, you can't add it on afterwards. So that's the first idea. I cut it out, on newspaper. So I'll show you my pattern first, and then the cutting out will come in the next video. So what I've got here is just a piece of newspaper. You need quite a lot of paper, so newspaper's ideal because you've got that extension there. So that beanie worked quite well. This one was a better length. Well, it's about the same length actually, but I'm going to extend it about, actually this top bit I'm going to extend about 10 centimeters up to here. And then what I want to do is to position it so that I can add 5 centimeters to the side and just draw the shape round. I actually only have to do half of it because I want it to be identical on the other half, so I'll do a fold in the middle. So I've done half of it. I've lost my pen. Okay. One pen, I've got the other one. Here's a slightly blacker one. So I can choose a different shape, but as a starter, if this is the first time you've done this, I like to keep it quite simple. So I've got my shape here, which is about 5 centimeters bigger. The actual edge of the hat here will be identical to the hat here because I'm going to put it onto a ribbed section that doesn't need any sewing. So that section there, as long as you don't mark your hat, can go along there. If you don't have a hat of your own in this formation, borrow one from one of the family. Even if it's a child's hat, you can add a few centimeters onto it and then do your 5 centimeters, because you need the hat size for your head, which is about here for me, and then add 5 centimeters all the way around, not the bottom, not the ribbed edged section of the hat, but all the other sections. So 5 centimeters going all the way round. So we end up with a shape. It's like a giant beanie shape here, and that's what I'll cut out. And in the next video I'll show you how to position it on a sweater. So we've got our shape, and if you want to change the shape, you can do a pointed hat, so you can change the shape here. I prefer to start with something simple and then explore the ideas. Now, I'm going to fold it in half down the centre of the hat, so that both sides, so I've got the fold there and then the shape there. So both sides are identical. Wrestle with my paper, like that, and then cut out the fold section, two together, and go around. If you haven't got enough fabric in your hat from the jumper, it's annoying. You can use all parts of the jumper, because I'm going to show you what to do with the other parts of the jumper in the next video. So we end up with a giant beanie. So in part one, we made a template for our hat. So it's a beanie size, a little bit extended at the top, and an additional 5 centimetres all the way around. So when it goes on my head, it will make sort of like this top of my head 3 sections. I prefer to cut out more than I need and then cut a bit more off, because it is a sweater and you want to find something that's really soft and nice feel to the touch. So this sweater's a little bit pilled, but when we've actually worked it and added some pleats and some interest in there, you won't see the pilling, but it's very soft to wear. It's warm, perfect for a winter day at the moment. Now, because it's a sweater, I can use the bottom section here, which is ribbed, and I want to use that for the edge of my hat, and then I don't have to do anything with it. You can do it different ways, but again, I wanted to make it quite straightforward to begin with, and then you can work it with other things. It is a bit scary to actually start cutting. You put the sweater down on a flat surface, which I'll try and do here, and I've got something underneath it, so I'll move that out of the way. So I've got it on the flat surface here, and when I've done that, I want to put the pattern on top, and if I can, I want to use one side where it's joined there, so I only have one join on the actual hat. So I'm going to take it from one side here, so I'm not going to have to add anything there. Go straight across, even though my pattern isn't straight across, and then go up to a position at the top. So I'm going to take it so that my edging is not quite straight, but I'm going to position it like that, because I'm not going to cut anything off the edge. I want to have enough fabric, enough wool in there, because I've rounded it off. I don't need to. I'm going to make it straight, so because this sweater is straight, so I'm going to ignore that movement. I'm not going to cut it. I'm going to cut, I'm going to pin it like that, but not cut that extra, because I've bowed it a little bit. And then as I go up this side, I'm going to leave and not cut it until I get to a position up here, about halfway up, pin it again. You do need to take time on this part, because this is the most important part, because if you get this wrong, you don't have a sweater to work with. You can make joins, and actually it gets more and more exciting as you join. At the top here of the sweater, I've got a V-neck sweater here, so I've just managed to get it in before the V. If you have to get it in with a V or a shape, you've just got to consider it. So I've managed to get it all out of one section. I'm going to leave this one joined about halfway up to there, so I'm not going to cut there. I'm going to start cutting when it curves in, and I'm going to cut the two sections, the top and the bottom, together. So if I go to, this is a little bit new, so if I go to position here, I can ignore this, because I want this ribbed edge to be the edge of my hat, my new hat. And then I'm just going to cut right on the edge of the newspaper. I've added 5 centimetres, so don't need to add any more. 5 centimetres will be ample to work with. And you just cut the two pieces together. As I say, at this point you don't want to be moving the knitwear too much, because all the edges are frayed, and it's at this point that the knit fabric is at risk of unravelling. So don't start moving it around, just leave it in position on your table. Cut through the two sections together, and if you're out a little bit, take it further out. Don't skimp on the amount of fabric you've got, because your hat is the most important thing. The excess fabric, don't throw it away, because we'll make some gloves and maybe some other warmer things to go with your hat. Who doesn't need gloves to match? So you just cut round the whole shape. Now I've got the outside of the sweater because I wanted to see what I was doing. If you've got a mark on your sweater, you can actually miss it out in the cutting, or you can plan it so that it will, as I've missed just there, so I've got to do the under part just there. So I've ended up with a cut section, I've gone out a little bit on that part, but pretty much to the pattern. We're working with hats at home. We've got our sweater, it's been cut out, and we've got the edge of it here. The pattern has a section that is about 5 centimetres bigger than our beanie hat. I wanted it a little bit higher as well, so I think I added 10 centimetres here and 5 centimetres around the edge. You need a little bit of extra fabric to play with. If you make it too small, you will make a beanie copying a beanie, and that's fine if that's what you want. But if you want to explore the opportunities, you cut it out together. I've pinned it so the front of the sweater, the knit, the two fronts are facing each other, and so we've got the underside of the sweater to work with. I'm going to use a contrasting colour to show you what to do. You can use any wool. It's better if you choose a colour that is the same as your, or a similar one to your sweater, but in this case it's easier for you to see it. And what I do is I use 2 arm lengths, so I go arm to the end of my hand there and double it. Actually my arm length is there down to my wrist, so wrist to top of your arm, double. And I have used a tapestry needle, but it's hard to go through the wool, so I'm using a needle with a point, but it's got a big eye because I'm using wool that will work. And I double it over, so you've got 2 pieces. Don't make it any longer than 2 arm lengths, because it will not, and then you've got every other problem to work with. So this is a really good length. Keep the 2 ends together. Just do 1 single knot in those 2 ends, so the 2 pieces of wool are together. Try and take it down so it's about 1 centimetre. It doesn't matter if it's not 1 centimetre, that's about 2 centimetres. So I'll cut it to 1 centimetre like that. So I've got about a 10cm tail on each end there, and that will work in our formation. So I'm going to start with this one on the side that needs to do, we need to have a join. So I'll start over here and make sure that those two pieces are together. Now, because I'm using a different colour thread, this colour will show through, but the reason is so that you can see how I'm doing it. And what I do is I start about half a centimetre in. Oh, where are we? Here we go. About half a centimetre in, and I push the needle about half a centimetre there, so it goes through both pieces of fabric through the wool, and then I've got my knot at the end here. I come back not quite in the same place because I don't want to compromise the wool, about 2 millimeters over. So I'm doing like a tiny stitch on the back here. I've got tiny stitch on the back. I haven't pulled it through enough because I just need it. I need it tight, but not pulled too tight, because if you pull it too tight, then you compromise it again. Then what you do is you've got this loop here. So it's just one tiny little knot, and you bring your thread through the loop, and that, when you just pull it slowly, will hold and it will never break. This is a great way to start if you are sewing on a button. If I sew on a button onto any shirt, it never comes off. That is a great starting point. Now, yes, it will show, but by the time we've finished everything, you will do it in the same colour. I'm just doing this to show you. And then what I do is an overstitch, and I can do a blanket stitch if I know how to do that. I'm just going to do a very simple overstitch, and I'm going to go back on myself, because what I want to do, oh gosh, I've got a knot. Just take it slowly, because you've got two pieces of wool. Again, back on myself to go back, right back to the beginning, and then I want to do a stitch, but I don't want to go through the wool, so I want to go through the stitch. I want to come up as an overstitch just below, like I'm right on the edge of this edge, and as the faster I do it, the more knots I get. Just take it slow. So I've gone right back to the edge there, and my aim is to do an overstitch, just an overstitch, so that I fill in all the gaps, and it's about 3 centimeters wide, because I've got to get all the ends of this knit, because it's a knitted garment, all the ends of the knitted garment under my stitching. Now this takes a little bit of time, so you've got, now if I do it quickly and space it out, which I can do, I'll show you what happens. It's not a problem. You might want to space it out and see if it's working, but the advantage is you can go back and fill in the gaps. Now I'm stitching the two pieces together. I'm on the underside of the fabric, and I'm doing an overstitch. I showed you the beginning of the stitching. I've spaced them out a little bit. I've brought them in together, and I'm coming to a position where I'm going to run out of thread, run out of wool. And I don't go right to the end. The mistake is to go so you've got like 3 centimeters of wool. You need to stop when you've got 10 centimeters. I've got a bit more than 10 centimeters at the moment. So I'm just carrying on for a moment, holding it up in the air so you can see. I'm putting them quite close together, about 2 or 3 mil apart, and I can go back and look at it afterwards and see whether that works. Now I've got 10 centimeters. It's about how far down my hand, sort of in my palm, just over a palm's length. depending on the size of your palm. So when it's about that length from the wrist to your fingers, that's about 10 centimetres. It doesn't have to be accurate. You need enough thread to finish off, and the way to finish off is to snake it back like that once, and then come in the other direction on the other side, going back on yourself twice. And those two little snakes are enough, and then we can have like a 2mm tail off the end. Will work, and that's just going to be discarded. You take another piece of wool, again the length of your arm, double it, and that amount of thread will just about work. You won't get into too many tangles. You do it exactly the same way as the beginning. Put the two threads together, do a loop knot here, like that. Pull it through. If you're clever, you can take the knot down to 1 centimetre. That's your aim, so you don't have to do any cutting. So just pull it like that. So the knot can be tight. When you're doing stitching, don't make it too tight. You just want it to work. So we started off just before we get to the stitching. So we'll go in and go over with a loop just here, and you're ready for action again. Same loops, over stitch, and keep going until you're finished. I'll be back when I've finished. I'd just like to recap. I started off with a sweater. I've made the pattern sort of 10 centimetres higher than my beanie hat and extended it by 5 centimetres all around. And I showed you in each separate video. This is the last part which I've done. So I've got the shape and I wanted it sort of big and manoeuvrable. I used a different contrasting colour of wool so that you'd see what I've done. Now if you look just here, I've got some gaps in it, so what I'll do is I'll make it up, and if I still feel that I need to go over it again, I will. What I've tried to do is to make the stitches sort of consistent. In this part I've filled up the space and it won't fray, so that part's good. This part could be better. I did it in a bit of a hurry, so I could go over that again with the same wool and fill in the gaps. And I've gone right round to the end here, so I've made the hat in essence. And the next part is my favourite part because it's the opportunity to style it. So we turn it out. This is it's inside out at the moment, obviously, and then I turn it the other way. Now because this jumper was quite pilled, I don't want to leave it like this because it just looks like a pilled jumper. So I'm going to give it some interest with some pleats and some forms on it that you may be interested in. And to do that, I pin it and then I'll be able to try it on. Now at the moment, obviously, because I put it 10 centimetres too big, it doesn't quite work. It's too big, the edge is edged, and I would need a clip and all sorts of things to go in it at the moment. If I want to turn it over, which I can do, I'm starting to get a little bit of hat shape. Now you need to have a little bit of imagination because obviously it doesn't work yet. I can pleat it, I need to reduce the size here. I might want to keep that little bit of movement so that I can really pull it over my ears and have it doubled up. I quite like that look. And then what I want to do up here is to put some pleating in so that I can play with it. And this part here, which is the ugly orange contrast, I'm going to pleat in. I might do a roll. So I'm just playing with ideas at the moment. It's very comfortable. It's a merino wool. So if I try that, I've just turned it over and just get into position. So I've just rolled it over, and what I'm going to do is to just position where I want the pins, so it's quite loose on my head. So I want sort of that to be my head position there. And this part here, I rolled it over, and I'm going to continue the roll so I cover all the orange, and I've got quite a neat shape there. I'm going to tuck that orange in. Normally you'd use a self-colour wool or cotton. Now I don't have this lilac wool, so what I've done is to find a cotton that is not a bad formation with this. It will work. And I think I've got some thread here. I've threaded a needle. Not yet. No, I have threaded a needle, yes. No, I haven't. Okay, so I've got the thread. I'm going to pin it first because I want to see how it looks. So I've done like a little roll there, which I'm going to pin, and I want to get to a stage where I've sort of got the hat all done in pins, and then I sew it up. So that's the part, I've got it on my head, that I can play with. It can go up and down. This part obviously will come down if I want it to. If it's snowing out there, I can pull it down, but I'm planning to have it up like that. Now the next part is to add some interest, because as I said, this is a pilled sweater and I don't want to just leave it as it is. So if I add some pleats in, so I've got my roll, and then because I've got it formed here, which is a bit ugly, I'm going to put a pleat in there, pinch a pleat in, put a pin, and see how I feel, because I've given myself 5 and 10 centimetres at the top of wriggle room, so I can play with possibilities. And if I don't like it, I can just take the pins out and redo it. Maybe I don't like the position, so I'm putting a sort of flat pleated formation. It's about 2 centimetres going down, and because the pins are in it, it's turning a little bit. At the moment I've got it in a formation. I'm going to put 2 more pleats in there, one to one side there, and then one to the other side. So each pleat is pinned, not sewn. If you try it on, you have to be really careful because it's only pinned, and the pins will stick in your head if you don't sort of, have a health warning in there. So I'm going to put another pleat there and see how I feel. I need to take some of the volume out of my hat. Now pleats are one way. I can do, sometimes I've done a sort of a twist on the top, which is quite nice. So I could do a twist. I can do a twist and turn it and position it there, or I can take the twist on the inside, and this is a quite simple way. You can just tie it on the inside and you end up with something a little bit interesting on the outside. I want to do this twist on the outside, so I'm going to try and get it in the middle and just do a little bit of a twist in there, pin it. Of course you can see my stitching because I chose a contrasting colour. I wouldn't advise that because it will show. I might end up putting some beading or something over the top to hide it. So I'm just trying to pin a twist, which is not easy because Obviously a twist is a number of layers, a number of parts. So you try your hat. You can make it simple. You can do like one pleat going in, you could do a twist. I've got my roll over here, which has ended up with a sort of formation there on one side. I've got nothing on this side over here, so I'm going to just pinch, maybe do a little bit of a twist in here. Just do actually we'll do a pinch underneath, and that's quite nice if you do a sort of a formation. So the pinch underneath, I take a line, and then to fix it I do a back stitch, so it's a sort of running stitch and then I run back, sort of backwards and forwards. But back stitches is quite useful, or if you're happy with the formation, I'm doing it like this, so I'm doing the same width and then tapering it so it's narrower at the end, and then I'm going to look at it. So there's no set science. You have to get the volume out because you've added volume in, but you don't want to cut it out, you want to just play with it. So I've got a line there, and what I might do is, then I've got it up like that, so I've got a little sort of under pleat there, and that might be the back. I've got my front section here, and at the moment I've got my roll on that side. I'm just going to put it on. It's getting there. This one is sort of like formed a natural pleat in there, so I'm going to do that as we've got the under pleat there, and this one's going to be an upper pleat, and I've got a few different things happening. I'm not going to quite pin into my head, I'm just going to hold it, take it off my head and pin it like that, and then I'm going to turn it round because the back needs to look as good as the front, otherwise you've got a nice front and then the back doesn't look very good. So I'm going to turn it round and just make sure that I've got enough going on. Now that formation at the top works. I've got this upper pleat here and it just falls like that. If I was wearing it like that, it would be okay. My choice, well, I've got different choices. I can leave it like that and have the roll at the back. I can turn it like that, and I've got a few little ears and things popping up. It's very comfortable, and I can just pull it over my ears and just go out in the snow. So that is the hat.